Hey folks, this is Chad Perkins for Red Giant. Here we're going to look at using PluralEyes 4 with Premiere to sync audio and video. Now in this tutorial we're going to be using multiple cameras recorded at the same time, often called a multi-cam setup, and then we're going to sync all those cameras to a high quality audio source. But you can also just sync one camera to an audio source or multiple cameras to each other. Now there are multiple ways to work with PluralEyes when you're dealing in Premiere, and I'm first going to show you my favorite, the new way in PluralEyes 4. I have here a sequence with an interview I conducted with actress Eva Jane for some filmmaking training that I made. There's 3 cameras here, each with their own separate audio track. We have a red camera, that's our main camera on Eva. We have a GoPro clip, and I can't even find the GoPro. I have a bunch of GoPro clips in here. The interview with her is somewhere in there. I'm not sure where it is. And then we also have a DSLR clip with reverses on me. This green clip is the high quality audio. And again, the GoPro has a bunch of clips from the card. I don't even know what's on there. So what I want to use PluralEyes to do is to first find out what's from the interview, what's not, and extract just the interview clips. And then I also want it to sync all of these clips together so that they're all lined up and that they're all synced with the high quality audio. I should also point out that this is an hour's worth of footage in terms of the GoPro and in terms of the audio. I'm going to go up to the window menu here, and I'm going to go to Extensions, PluralEyes 4. This opens up a separate window. I've docked mine. You could just, if yours is floating like this, you could just grab the name of the tab, and then I'm actually going to make a new frame there. And there we have just kind of like this new panel of just PluralEyes. As it tells you here, it's ready to go. We have the active sequence, interview sequence, and that's loaded up here, and it says sequence, interview sequence is ready to synchronize. And it's just so simple. There's just this big synchronize button right here. But before doing that, I actually want to show you some options. I'm going to click this little sprocket thing for my settings. We can color unsynchronize clip, which is really helpful. So I'm going to definitely do that. So that way when these clips are separated, I'll instantly know which ones were synced and which ones were not. And because I know I have a bunch of media here that doesn't belong, I definitely want to see which clips are which. I also want to use this option to move the unsynchronized clips to the end. That makes things much more nice and tidy rather than having clips that don't sync and that we don't need sprinkled throughout our timeline. I'm also going to use this third option to create a new sequence with the audio replace. I got a bunch of audio sources here. I'm going to go ahead and check that, and it's going to make a new sequence that gets rid of the old camera audio and just uses my nice high quality audio. Great, with those options selected, I'm going to go ahead and click the synchronize button. Now, most of the time when you have these demos, people usually use the magic of editing to skip through, when the computer's processing or the software's processing something. But I actually want to talk through this in real time so you can actually see how quick this is to take an hour of footage and multiple sources, including 4K raw red media, and sync all that stuff together. An hour of it. And it's already almost done, 90%. And there we go. And that's it. Notice the rose-colored clips over here, just the end of the timeline, exactly what I told it to do. This is the stuff that doesn't belong with the project, doesn't fit at all. And then here we have the high-quality red stuff. And then we have the 7D footage over here. We have the GoPro clip over here. I go over here to my clips and play this back.
Through what they'd been through, would I have a
turn off the red footage to see the footage beneath it.
similar reaction? What I
just kind of thinking about what she's saying. So not really any audio there, but we could tell that it's in sync. Everything worked. Now this is always what your results will look like. But because we also chose this option, this create a sequence with audio replaced, it creates the synced sequence, but also creates a replaced sequence. And so now the original camera audio is gone. So by default, PluralEyes is always going to create this sequence with the camera audio, just so it's there in case you need it. But this is so much cleaner, and honestly, this is the one that I would work with. So here's the footage.
completely different, and you're like, oh my.
And there we have it. Now, I mentioned before that there are multiple ways to work with Premiere and PluralEyes. I, of course, find this new feature, this new panel in PluralEyes 4 to be amazing. And this is the only thing that I will use now that this is an option. But there are multiple options, 4 to be exact. One of the things that we could do is with this panel selected, we could choose Open in PluralEyes. This will take our sequence and open it up in PluralEyes. We're going to do that in just a moment. But I could also go to File, export Final Cut Pro XML and export an XML of a sequence and bring that into PluralEyes as well. I can also start in PluralEyes and then export an XML from PluralEyes into Premiere. So again, multiple ways to get in and out. I'm just going to go ahead and click this Open in PluralEyes button to bring this sequence into PluralEyes. And this is the PluralEyes interface. I'll go ahead and click Synchronize here, just like we did in Premiere. And since you've already seen this process in real time and know how long it takes, I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up through the magic of editing. And there we go. Our clips are all synced. And kind of like we saw in Premiere, the clips that didn't sync, like my video clips on my GoPro and stuff, family vacations and whatnot, those turned red. Now, if I want to check my sync here in PluralEyes, I can click this little TV screen, this monitor next to the word media here to open up the video player. And then we can check different sources. So say, for example, I want to check this GoPro clip. I can click on it here in the timeline. And maybe let's move a little bit later into the clip, into the waveform. And there's a clip. And I'm looking at right now at camera 2, the video from camera 2. And I'm also looking at the audio from camera 2. Well, that doesn't do me any good right now. So I'm going to go to this drop down. I'm going to change this to audio recorder 1. This is my high quality audio source. And now I could play back the high quality audio source synced from PluralEyes and also my GoPro footage. Cool. And it looks like my girly laugh is perfectly in sync. So let's go ahead and go over here to the right-hand side. If I need to, I could increase the size of the waveforms. And as I do that, you'll notice that changing. Notice that this does not affect the volume or anything at all about the clip. This only temporarily changes the size of the waveform while you're in PluralEyes. So that way you can look at the other clips and sync them as well. Have an easier time telling if they're in sync or not. You can also temporarily mute the camera audio. And in my case, the high quality audio is actually kind of quiet. So I can actually temporarily bring that up by increasing its volume here on the left-hand side. Now, the benefit of this here is this is only for preview purposes. Anything you do to the volume here is not going to be exported, and your media is not going to be touched in any way, which I love. You can also use keyboard shortcuts to navigate now. So I could use the plus icon to zoom in, to see my waveforms, use the minus key to zoom out. I could use the backslash key, that's the slash above the enter or return key, to see my whole timeline at once. Now I'm going to zoom back in here. And again, we can use these tools to compare waveforms, although I do think that this waveform is starting to clip a little bit. It's a little bit big. So I can actually use the bracket keys as keyboard shortcuts. The right bracket will increase the size of the waveform. The left bracket will decrease the size of the waveform. Now, once you've synced your media here in PluralEyes, you want to get it back into Premiere all synced up. So I can go to the Export Timeline button, and I want to change the export format to Premiere Pro, which is actually already done for me. And the cool thing here is that we have parity between the export timeline options in PluralEyes and the extra options that we saw back in Premiere. These are the same exact options. We can color unsynchronized clips, we can move unsynchronized clips to the end, and we can also create an additional sequence with the camera audio replaced by the high quality audio. And we could choose here the name of the XML file, and we could click it to choose a different destination. So let's go ahead and try that. I'm going to go ahead and click Export. I'll go back to Premiere. Now back here in Premiere, we still have the synced stuff from before, so I'm going to select that folder with all that new stuff from PluralEyes. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go back up to the File menu, choose Import. I'm going to navigate to the XML we just created from PluralEyes and click Import. And here we have it, Interview Sequence 2. Open it up. There's our sequence, Interview Sequence synced. It made the clips rose-colored, put them at the end of our timeline just like we asked it to. We didn't want it to replace camera audio this time. It did not, and all of our media is now synced. So as you can see, syncing your audio and video in Premiere is just so easy. It's so nice to work with. Let's look at one other example. Now, sometimes when you have longer clips like this, these are about 15 minutes long or so, they can tend to drift into and out of sync over time. This is usually because of little differences in the devices used to record the audio. But what do you do if you're trying to sync this manually and you get these sync issues over time? I mean, you're stuck. But watch this. When I just do a regular old sync in PluralEyes, click the Synchronize button, I don't have to do anything. It automatically detects sync drift and applies drift correction for me. Now, just to show you how tricky of a problem this is, I'm going to click here to remove drift correction. And now this is just a regular old sync. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on each clip and press on the right bracket key so I get a bigger waveform. Again, this just doesn't change the volume, but allows me to see that waveform more clearly so I can compare these two tracks. Now if I zoom into the center of these tracks, these waveforms appear to line up. I mean, the sync is fine. Who needs drift correction, right? Even if I click on the left side of the track here, the bottom little line, and expand these tracks so I get a bigger waveform to make it easier to compare these two tracks, they still look totally aligned. But when I use the backslash key to zoom all the way out so we can see everything, and I go to the beginning of these clips and then zoom back in, we can see that things aren't quite lined up right. And I could tell by turning back on drift correction, now they work, now they're synced up, turn it off, and now they're not. Now look at this peak over here. That's really obvious how far off they are. I mean, they're quite a bit out of sync. But I put on drift correction, they line up perfectly. Off, on, off, on. PluralEyes is looking through all of your footage, making sure that your entire clip is synced all the way through the clip. Now it's also worth noting that PluralEyes is the only software on the planet that can detect and correct this issue. Now, be sure to check out redgiant.com/tutorials to see more PluralEyes tutorials for other host applications and other workflows as well. On behalf of Red Giant, I'm Chad Perkins. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.